awesome. I loved his combos. He had a lot of air jungling and air throws. It was really cool. But we are getting back into the game now. We'll have to see what the first bans are. I can expect a lot of the same bans as last game because last game sort of had more general bans. There wasn't really anything that was directed. We had stuff like Twisted Fate, those globals.
Stuff like
Probably going to
that.
be a Shen ban for the blue team. I can assume we're going to see Shen banned again in the purple team. I think someone might end up taking out Thresh, and if he's not taken out, then he's definitely going to be picked because he's a very, very good champion at this point. We'll have to see what the rest of the bans are, though.
Did we see a Shen ban last game?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so.
Catastrophe banned Twisted Fate and Shen, and we were like, well, those are some pretty heavy globals. We might be seeing a Karthus ban if they want to keep going with that, but Karthus not really played all that often either.
Well, it looks like the red team might have watched Catastrophe's last game there, trying to remove that Sona pick.
Oh, yeah.
Deciding so, she is a very strong team fighter, not wanting really that team fight in there, and it looks like Blue Team or Catastrophe just kind of sticking with the same picks or
Yeah,
same bands. Yeah.
Diplox was really on par with Sona, landing all of those crescendos. It's a very, very good Sona play to see. And we'll have to see what the rest of the bans are. We might actually see a Twitch ban from the purple team if they're going once again for the whole let's ban out the champs they did really well with last game. Varus actually, Sona and Varus being banned. I think I would have rather seen the Twitch ban, to be honest, although they might know a little bit more than we do, and they might be saying, alright, Catastrophe really likes Varus as well, so we might ban them out, that champion out. And instead of the Shen, actually, Catastrophe going for Nidalee, so they might end up first picking Shen themselves if it's not banned here for the purple team. I could see that happening. Not sure if it's really going to be what they do, because he's honestly not the biggest priority pick. They could go with some more heavy initiate team fight sort of champs, or they could go with Shen because he is a fairly strong champion at the moment. And there's the
There's
Twitch
the
ban.
Twitch, yeah.
Yeah. I,
SSJ Vegito really showing his prowess on Twitch, and I think Varus was just another champion that worked well with Sona, but we're going to see Thresh picked up.
there we go. First pick Thresh.
Yeah.
Definitely want to see that now that he's not banned out. So we're going to see a lot of great. Well, I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of great hooks. If his Thresh play is anything compared to his Sona play, it's going to be a very, very good game for him. He's going to land a lot of great hooks as well as some amazing boxes.
0-0-21 Thresh.
Yeah,
Call it.
or 0-1-22 Thresh. We could see that very last kill at the end game. But yeah, he's a very, very nice champion. And although I don't really like the fact that they named his ultimate the Box, it's just so bland. It's a box. They could have added one adjective before box to make it better.
The hollowed box.
Yeah, exactly.
The
hollow
scary box.
I don't know about scary. Scary seems kind of just like, oh, it's the scary box. It
Well, I
sounds
feel like that's what they did by just calling it the box. Like I feel like it's a horror movie reference. But we are going to
Meanwhile-
see, yeah, Tarek and Trundle picked up. What do you think of the new Trundle rework?
Trundle has gotten a rework recently, and it's pretty good. One of the actual biggest complaints about Trundle before the rework was the fact that his Q did not scale with attack speed. So you'd be sitting there auto-attacking at 1.5 or 1.2, something of the sort, and it would be going pretty fast. And then you press Q, and you go back to waiting 1.5 seconds for the Q to actually finish before you start auto-attacking again. And that was a huge complaint because it actually lowered his DPS by quite a bit, which is something, it's not very fun. Along with that, they also, I believe, gave him knock up on the pillar if he lands it right under an enemy champion. Let me check that. Yeah. And it's a pretty good rework, and I can see him being used a lot more now because he really wasn't in the worst spot before. He just needed some minor buffs, and it was more of a lore rework than a skill rework because most of his skills have remained pretty much the same.
He's still, I think, I'd have to agree with you on pretty much all your points. His only really big problem still is that he gets kited. Like he's a very easily kiteable champion, especially I noticed that we do have an Ezreal picked up, and that is locked in for Catastrophe. And And Ezreal really really good. Has two blinks at his disposal if take flash, but it's pretty much standard. So I think that's probably what we're going to see. Two blinks, three probably in a given fight because one, then the flash, and then another one after it's off cooldown. And we could. I'm personally wondering: is he going to build poke and kite Ezreal, or is he going to build more of a traditional Ezreal build?
It would be interesting to see. Although at this point, kiting Ezreal is becoming the traditional sort of Ezreal. We're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of Blessing of the Lizard Elder Lizard on on him, as well as we're seeing a lot of Iceborne gauntlets, and that really gives him so much utility on his Q whenever he throws it out. And it's a great skill shot. It's got a lot of range, and having something that applies on-hit effects on a skill shot is something you really really like because that means you can use it through walls, you can use it in bushes, you don't need to be able to see the champion in order to hit them with a skill shot. And not only that, but skill shots generally have more range, and that's definitely true with Ezreal's Q. So very, very good to apply on-hit effects there and to build on-hit effect sort of abilities. But for the rest of the blue team, it looks like they have quite a bit of poke as they have Ezreal as well as Jace, and if someone steps out a little bit too far, they get hit with Kayle, and that is actually quite a bit of poke as well. They do have a little bit of hard initiate going for them with the Amumu pick as well as Thresh. Got some pretty nice hard initiate there. Meanwhile, on the purple team, they have locked in Jarvan as well as Caitlyn. Jarvan, as we know, is a great teamfight champion. He's very, very tanky, and his Cataclysm can basically wall someone off. They can prevent the positioning of an AD carry. They can prevent people from diving into the front line. It's very, very nice to prevent mobility coming from either team, although unfortunately Ezreal does have Arcane Shift, so it's not going to be as useful against a champion like Ezreal.
One thing I do have to say is that the Nidalee ban makes a little more sense now that we see this Jace being picked up by Catastrophe. Really, if Buffet Line had gotten that Nidalee and put her top lane, Jace would have had a little bit of trouble. Nidalee is a good champion at staying far away and staying out of danger. Jace really wants to just jump on you, poke, and hit you away. That's not really going to happen, especially when level 6 comes around for Nidalee. So I actually, that makes the Nidalee ban make a little more sense.
Yeah, the Nidalee ban makes sense for the comp that they're running because they don't want to get counterpoked as well as have the heal on the enemy team as well. And they are going for the mid lane Kayle once again because unless there's a mid lane Ezreal and an AD carry Kayle or something of the sort, but I really doubt that that's going to happen. So we have Kayle going for the AP role, and I think he might end up building the sort of bursty Kayle again because they really have a lot of burst on their team. Once again, they have Ezreal, who's really good at spamming a lot of his abilities at the very beginning of a fight and taking someone down to a very low amount of health. Unfortunately, he has to wait for his cooldowns in order to be as strong as most other AD carries, but once he gets the cooldowns back up, then he's pretty strong. And that's really one of the main differences between Ezreal and someone like Caitlyn, whereas Caitlyn is building straight up damage. She wants to stay near the back of the fight, get as many auto attacks off as possible. Ezreal, if he goes for straight up auto attacks, he's not really going to be as strong as a lot of other AD carries. So he's really going to want to start kiting. He's going to want to spam abilities. So the Sheen proc on Iceborne is going to help him out with that, as well as a lot of other things. So that's why he's sort of more considered a bursty sort of AD carry rather than someone like Caitlyn, who's just used to poke you down from a distance and then stay out on the outskirts of the fight and auto attack you to death.
Yeah, I forget who did it, but the AD carry, one of the Riot Player Pro picks was actually about Ezreal, and I believe it was, I'm strapped for the name right now, but it was one of the Asian players, and he was basically talking about how you really need to know how much damage you have as Ezreal, and you really got to understand your limitations, because if you do, then Ezreal becomes a super powerful combat tool because he just does have that burst damage, and you just need to know when you can all of a sudden, okay, Arcane Shift, bam bam spells, bam auto attack, you're dead. Like, that's really, he talked a little bit about that in his pro player pick, but either
Yeah,
way,
one thing about Ezreal that's good to note is the fact that his mobility ability is one of the ones that you can use more viably for sort of getting closer to the fight to get into the fight rather than something, say, Corki. You almost never want a Valkyrie into a fight. You always want a Valkyrie to reposition yourself or to get out of a fight. Although Ezreal, it's sort of an odd shift in that because his Arcane Shift does damage as well. It fires a projectile as soon as he uses it, and it also helps him proc his Sheen proc on the Iceborne Gauntlet. So it's one of the abilities that you use offensively, and in order to use it offensively, like you said, you really need to know his limits. You need to know how much burst he has.
Yeah, and it looks like we only have 30 seconds more. Have we talked about the teleport yet, and the fact that Jarvan is actually not in the jungle? Because that's fairly interesting to me. How do
Yeah,
you think
it's pretty interesting.
Trundle's gonna gank as opposed to Jarvan?
Trundle ganks as opposed to Jarvan. He's got a little bit of extra mobility once he pops his W, and he also has the pillar, which is huge if you can land it. It's a great amount of CC. It creates an impassable wall, which is also amazing, and it really helps the rest of his team land their skill shots because they're really forced to go around the wall. You have one of two options. He can either go left around the wall or he can go right around the wall. Or if you're, oriented differently, he could go above the wall or below the wall, something of the sort, but you can't go straight through it, which really helps his team land those skill shots as well as applying a huge slow. It helps his team out quite a bit, and it blocks out a possible escape route. So, getting into the game, we do see the Skin War 4 skins up there for the blue team,
Dragon Slayer
whereas
Jarvan.
only 2 on the purple team, and one of them is indeed Dragon Slayer Jarvan. I think it was Cloud, but Cloud actually bought me Jarvan just so that he could buy the Dragon Slayer Jarvan skin for me. That was the only reason he bought me Jarvan.
Wow.
But I got a free champion out of it, so it's a little bit better, but still never going to use that skin
So,
ever.
is there a curse with Dragon Slayer Jarvan as well? Does
I
the
don't know.
curse go to both of them?
I would think there is. It definitely exists on Vayne. So far, out of all the games we've uh, spectated in the TDTV tourney, Dragon Slayer Vayne, her team is lost. We'll have to see whether or not it stays the same with Jarvan. But looking at the team comps, giving a quick overview of that, we have a lot more sort of bursty team comp out of the blue team. They're looking to go straight up for the fight. We have Jace, who's got the execution, which is a very good ability for him. He's also got a lot of long-range poke on his Shock Blast. We also have Kayle, who's going in the mid lane, and last time we saw him build for the Lich Bane sort of bursty Kayle, which might end up happening once again this game. And on top of that, we have Ezreal, very, very bursty champ. He relies on using his abilities more than pretty much any other AD carry. We also have Amumu, ultimate, big AoE snare, getting a lot of burst damage down as well. And I think if blue team gets off to an early lead, we might be seeing another AP of Mumu, which would be very interesting. We also have Thresh, who doesn't really have as much burst damage as the rest of his team, but he sort of gives the rest of the team a place to use their burst damage. He draws people in, he slows them, he stops their movement, and it really helps other people like Amumu land their ultimates to get the rest of the burst down. Meanwhile, the purple team, they're looking to fight a little bit more in terms of sustained fights. We don't have the big AoE burst abilities. We only really have Taric in terms of that. We also have Cataclysm by Jarvan to shield off a lot of people and prevent mobility with the walls that it gives. However, there isn't as much burst damage. They're more for single target damage on the red team than they are on the blue team.
Well, anyway, we are now fully in this game right here. We're going to have Team Catastrophe going against Buffet Line on the red team. So hopefully we'll see a good game. We are your casters. I am Sakimans. This is Azraki. And this is the second round of the Team Tower Dive tournament, number 29. And looks like both teams just setting up for blue to start out.
Yeah, this is a much safer game than it was last game. No one's going to try to pull an invade onto Cataclysm after that last game. Wow, it was really, really bad. Well, it was a good invade, but they just didn't make enough out of it. And I really like the fact that the blue team was able to pressure the fact that they had a lane advantage since the other team pulled that invade. So it was a good play on their part. So I think the red team, as we said before, they have a lot of targeted bans, so they perhaps saw that last game and said, all right, invading might not be the best idea. Even if we do it successfully, the other team is going to be able to bring it back into their favor.
Amumu doing a little bit of entertainment for the crowd, just laughing it up over here. This time, the Amumu actually not going to get invaded on. It was the other team's Amumu last time. This time it looks like, actually no, it was Catastrophe's, but it looks like he's going to get his blue. It's going to help him get to an even earlier lead, so that should help out a lot with Ice Whip in the jungle. And we're just going to see fairly standard junglers by both teams.
Yep, and it looks like Jarvan, he just took Wraiths, I believe, so that'll help him out in lane as well. So he's going to have a slight level advantage above Kayle. So Jarvan, we see, is actually going mid lane, which we were sort of expecting him to go top for a sec, but instead we have Elise in the top lane, and ooh, a lot of damage already from Jarvan.
Ouch, yeah, mid lane at 80 carries, nothing to be, nothing to just, shake your fist at, or, well, actually, it is something to shake your fist at, because they do so much damage. They just hurt so badly, especially Jarvan, someone with extremely strong engage power, and we could possibly see a first blood in the mid lane, if not from a jungler gank, on the fact that Jarvan overextending so much to try to pick up this Kayle.
And we see something happen here, which is sort of the mind game. I can tell that the blue team sort of expected the red team to send Jarvan top and Elise mid, and now we know Elise scales with ability power, so she does magic damage, and they didn't really expect Jarvan to be mid, so Kayle doesn't have a lot of armor in her Runes of Mastery. She has about 32 at the moment, which is not indicative of someone who's running that full, or that extra armor page. So it's unfortunate for her. She's going to have a fairly hard time in the early game, but as soon as she gets a little bit more in terms of levels, she's going to be able to use her E to farm at a distance. It won't be as hard for her, but it's still going to be a pain to face Jarvan in the early game.
Yeah, and so far, Caitlyn Taric not really making use of their early game power. Speaking of the early game, I'd really like to see them do that a little more. Ezreal, all you really need to do is dodge his Qs, and worst case scenario, he misses a bunch of Qs, wastes his mana, doesn't have all that much mana early game, so Caitlyn really has that range over him, and we're not seeing Caitlyn really poke and abuse her range, especially with an aggressive support like Taric, but then again, they were able to pick up that Thresh, and Thresh almost just as dangerous as that Taric, if not more, because he does transition in the late game.
Yeah, they still have to watch out for Ezreal's early game burst as well. It's quite a bit, and it's sort of on him as well to make sure that he keeps up with his mana. He's not going to want to throw out Qs to auto-attack as much as he normally wants to, especially with his hard initiate. But in the mid lane, we have a gank, Jarvan using the Mossian standard and lancing to it. Trundle trying to gank, but she will be able to get out of there with a flash.
That still is a flash blown, so next time Trundle does come out around to gank, it won't catch her as surprised. She's going to have to be more careful, and Trundle could actually see first blood in the mid lane here, walking all the way around the ward. And we are going to see the knockup go down by Jarvan. The pillar cutting Kayle off. She has no flash this time. Not level 6 either, taking so much damage. And she just gave up there. You saw her just press the S there. Even in the top lane, we're going to see a fight, at least fighting that Jace right there. And also in the bot lane, a little bit of engagement. Nothing going to come from that, though. Very, very nice kill by the red team.
That's a very good kill. It's going to give them first blood. And as we said before, Jarvan is something, it's a pain to lane against, and he's got a lot of his own CC. He can knock you up if he lands his EQ combo correctly, and in-lane CC is something that a jungler really loves, and it sets the stage for that sort of gank.
Ooh, speaking of gank, Amumu was roaming up in the top lane there. Jarvan is here, though, along with Trundle. Jace getting completely caught out. Very, very nice flash, though. Trying to, putting down a nice healthy chunk of damage. They did want to go onto Amumu there, but deciding not to. That Jace Q can sometimes scare you, especially when it's accelerated by the gate.
Yeah, Jace unfortunately did not see the fact that both Jarvan and Trundle were on their way up to counter-initiate that fight, but it looks like Amumu is going to be trying again for this engagement.
Yeah, it looks like Amumu going to be doing that. Oh, Jace missing his Q, missing a lot of damage, at least using the repel, but she can't get anywhere. Did she just die to Amumu's cry?
Ignite. It was Ignite.
Oh, Ignite. So, yeah, it looks like Ignite will pick up Elise, just falling dead out of the sky, being like, where'd she go? Like dead body falling next to you.
Didn't really need to wait for her to come down, but it's always a good idea to do that, just to make sure you secure the kill in the very end. But it was a very nice re-gank by Amumu going back in for it. He knows that, we did a lot of damage to both Jarvan and Trundle. They probably don't want to stay over here for another gank. They want to be going back to their own lanes, want to be everywhere in that sort of thing, want to be taking their own jungle. So Amumu basically said, all right, they're probably not going to stay up here. We got this gank, and they really did. So Jace has that early game kill. He's gone back, gotten his Tear of the Goddess. Really, really good item on Jace because he is such a spammy champion. He spams his abilities all the time, and he basically gets a free burst of, a couple of mana by charging his ultimate as well. As soon as he ultimates, it gives him a little bit more mana, and it doesn't cost anything as either, so it really helps him out quite a bit. We have Kayle in the mid lane.
Yeah, Kayle being forced to blow her all a little early. Jarvan taking a lot of damage. Oh, here comes Amumu, turning the fight around completely and getting a kill, and Thresh will actually hook, but they didn't know Trundle was there, evading that trap. It looks like Thresh gonna need to flash away there. It is a flash blown, but still no one was picked up. Very, very nice patience by the red team's jungler, blowing a flash in the bot lane.
Yeah, I wanted to see a little bit more in terms of forward wards for Thresh, and I didn't actually catch this. Did he buy anything in the early game? Because I'm not seeing any wards out on the map for the bottom lane of the blue team, and I'm not seeing anything in his inventory, so he might have actually forgotten to buy things when he first got out of his base, which would definitely be a problem in terms of...
No, he didn't forget things. I think Taric has been pinking pretty heavily. Or,
really?
no, or I don't know. Wait, what did he buy? Did he just buy potions and use them all?
Here, keep us updated on the action. I'm gonna go back and check to see what he bought.
Alright, well, it looks like
he just bought potions, and he also had 2 wards.
Okay.
So those wards have run out by now. I think one of them might have been pinked, as you said, but I'm back to live now. He really got run out of those consumables very, very quickly. So that's a great job by Taric to make sure he's winning the support war. And sometimes the support war isn't just all about who can get the most poke, who can get their AD
looks like
carry
Jace
fed.
going in under the top lane. Elise getting a very nice stun, trying to get away. Jace is continuing to chase, gonna try to get that auto attack. Gets one more auto attack. He's gonna need a Q, but the spiders block it. Oh, Elise's spiders doing a very, very nice job at chumping that skill shot, and Elise is gonna be able to get away.
Yeah, it's one of the most annoying things to do when fighting against an Elise is the fact that her spiders block skill shots. It's something that is really, really annoying, and it prevents those sort of situations where he could land a shock blast if there were no spiders. But since the spiders were there, they were going to deflect it, they were going to ignite them too early. And in the mid lane, it looks like Jarvan might be pulling another initiation.
Yeah,
but no.
Both of
He's
them
got his
have
ult up.
blue, so he could see something else, but Jarvan might be smart enough to know that this Kayle now has her flash back up, and if he uses his ult, it's just going to be a burn flash. So we'll see what happens there. And it looks like Kayle using her ultimate, putting a lot of damage down on Jarvan. But
her ultimate does come back up a lot faster than Jarvan's Cataclysm, so she could easily wait it out and make sure that she wins the next fight using her ultimate, even though Jarvan might have an advantage in terms of the fact that he has his ultimate up right now. But if she waits, just that 1 minute, I believe it's about 1 minute. Yeah, it's 1 minute and 10 seconds. She can wait that out, and she'll have her ult back up, and she'll be ahead in the next engagement against Jarvan. But it looks like we might have some jungler pressure on their way mid. Amumu is close enough to sort of react if something happens, but it looks like Trundle is the one who might be starting this gank in the mid lane.
Yeah, Trundle hanging around there, gonna be backing off though. Well, nope, he's still just kind of wandering around, but Kayle still just kind of going back to take some more farm here. Jarvan has the lane pushed up too far, not wanting to get caught out, and just want to take a quick look at the bot lane here. Ezreal looks like he is going for that early BF sword, does have that long sword as well as that BF sword, and I meant to say Bloodthirster, going for an early Bloodthirster, which isn't a bad item, and he can still build poking and kiting, but that is going to give him lots of sustain. Caitlyn, on the other hand, has more sustain right now, but has a lot less damage than this Ezreal currently does. So if we did see a fight break out...
We're seeing a teleport in the bot lane.
Ooh, yeah, we are. Jarvan coming in, getting that stun onto Diplox. Diplox taking a lot of damage. Here is Amumu using his ult. Very, very nice ult. It's actually going to get Diplox away, missing all the skill shots, but here comes 2 ultimates used on Diplox. They really wanted that kill.
Looks like Kayle is on her way back down. We might see a counter initiate.
Yeah, unfortunately at this point, Tarek stun back up. Trundle had enough speed to run out of there, so they had to disengage. So they were able to get away from that. So we're not going to see a countering it, but we are going to see a dragon possibly here. I'm not sure what the red team can do or if they can contest this. Actually, blue team's not going to be able to take it. Red team in a decent position right now. Actually, looking across the board, gold almost even, so not really wanting to try anything too risky.
Yeah, but neither teams are really far enough ahead to risk something like this, or even far enough behind. It's at that standstill sort of moment where they're both similar in gold, so neither of them... One team doesn't really want to keep their gold advantage. They're not far enough ahead to risk something like drag, and the other team's not far enough behind to sort of make the play towards drag to try to come back into the game, so neither of them really wanting to go for that. But Jace has to be careful, as we see both Trundle and Jarvan, they are heading towards the top lane. He is going to start retreating, and I think he's going to end up being safe. They're not really in any position to keep chasing him at this point, especially with the amount of speed boosts that he has.
Yeah, that gate definitely helps him run fast, and I believe he also gets a speed boost by just switching to his gun portion of his blade just for a little bit. So he definitely is going to be able to get away, despite the fact that Trundle also very fast champion. And just looking at the items now, we're seeing a lot of very standard items for really all of the champions. We're seeing Jace build that whole pokey Jace sort of thing. He has that tier of the goddess, at least getting a tier as well. And actually, we're going to have maybe a little pseudo engagement in the mid lane here. Trundle is coming up here. Nope, going to be backing off.
But that little pseudo engagement is going to set the stage for possibly a dragon fight. Red team does see this as they have a pink ward there, so let's see if blue team is going to be able to take this before the counter comes in. Trundle's the only one who's really trying to stop this, and it looks like that'll be a completely free dragon for the blue team. The red team, they saw it, but they just decided not to try to do anything about it, which I think might have been a mistake, because they could have easily had Jarvan as well as the bot lane go back in for the fight. It would have been a 4v5, but at the same time they could have contested it, made it take a little bit longer for them to take, or maybe even pull off the long-range steal with a Caitlyn Piltover Peacemaker. Anything to stall time for Elise to get a little bit more pushing in the top lane, or for something to happen, but I really don't think just letting it go was the best idea there for the red team.
Yeah, free dragons, they're always nice when, the opponent doesn't decide to, do anything, but I definitely have to agree with you. That could have been contested, delayed, anything, or at least at this point, red or blue team knows that they're not as far ahead as they were in the last game. This is a fairly even game. So just by showing their presence, maybe showing some display of might, throwing a few skill shots in there, they might have been able to force blue team away from dragon. It was a 4v5 though, at least not really roaming down, and Jarvan was stuck in the top half of the jungle. So, I mean, they might have belated some deaths, or really, prevented some deaths, so more to say. So, it's not the worst play not giving it for free, but that was a very, very well-timed, roam down by Jace for the blue team.
Yeah, we're seeing Elise pick up the Seeker's Arm Guard, which is going to end up building into Azonia's Hourglass. Very good item. That's going to help her in the early game, defending against Jace a little bit, negating some of his AD, his physical damage. And it also gives her a little bit of ability power to help her trade efficiently as well. Not only that, but it'll late game build up to Azonia's Hourglass, which really helps out Elise as a champion, because what she really wants to do, she really wants to get close to a fight. She wants to turn into spider form, get close to a fight, use all of her big burst abilities, and it helps her out quite a bit, especially if she uses Repel as well. It really gives her something else to use once she goes in the middle of the fight.
And it looks like in the top lane we're going to see a skirmish here. Jace, a lot of his damage being prevented by the fact that Elise just has her spiders. Her spiders blocked that high damage shock blast there in the last fight, really preventing her from doing anything. Or preventing him from really hurting. Like that might have even forced Elise back. And this could be a tower because they do have Trundle there as well.
Yeah, Trundle is going to do quite a bit of damage to a tower. If he does land a Q on something, it gives him more attack damage.
Speaking of an engagement in the bot lane, Amumu and Threshold both being pulled. It looks like Taric just getting bursted down. Poor little Taric standing in 2 ults and in the middle of the scary box.
Yeah, it's at this point in the game where both teams, they're not afraid to waste ultimates for a support kill, because it really helps you get the map advantage that you need. In this case, the blue team is able to push down this bottom lane tower And they're most likely going to be able to take the tower as well because Tarek isn't there. No one's there to sort of defend it at all. We have Jarvan who's going to be teleporting back in, but I think he might be cutting himself off.
Actually, though, D-blocks might fall pretty fast, though. Gonna be able to flash and get that Q. He's not gonna continue, though, as they might know that Trundle was, or they might know that Kale was coming down, as she did disappear out of the mid lane. They could look to 4-man push bottom, though. Elise and Tarek are both on the way. Ezreal just trying to hold them away from the tower. Not sure if it's a smart idea just to stand here, though, but Kale was there with the intervention, so I think they're going to be able to hold this tower, and now they're putting down a lot of damage on Jarvan. Very, very nice pillar to prevent that, Ezreal from really chasing.
Looks like all 5 members of the red team are now down in this bottom lane. They really want to take this tower back, want to do something about what they just... the blue team just took a tower, they want to set it back in their favor. Unfortunately, having all 5 of them bot lane is leaving Jace to push top, so he's going to get quite a bit of damage on that top tower before Elise is even able to get back. Don't think he's going to be able to take it, but he's definitely going to be able to bring it down to about a quarter of its health left. And not only that, but the blue team was actually successful in disengaging the red team from their tower, so this is a very, very good fight for them, even though there was only one death, and that death came in the form of Thresh. It really helped them out in the long run because they took a tower, they almost took a second tower, and they didn't lose anything other than that one death themselves. Amazing play by the blue team, taking advantage of the small things. You don't need to get a kill to come out in the top of a fight, especially when it's this close of a game. Only 2,000 gold separates these teams, so you need any advantage that you can get, and that was certainly a good one.
Yeah, especially when this is technically an objective-based game. A lot of teams forget that, so we definitely see a lot of higher-level teams playing for objectives as opposed to kills. And right there, that's exactly what we saw. We saw, and literally this top tower is pretty much pushable and diveable. It is sitting at less than 200 health, like 2 auto attacks, maybe even 1 by a Fed AD carry, and that tower is done.
Yeah, the tower, we can almost count it as sort of dead right now. The only thing it's really providing is the damage against minions, as well as a little bit of sight outside of their base, but other than that, if there's a team fight in the top lane, the red team can't really count on the tower to do any damage because, as you said, 2 auto attacks and it's down. Jace could easily sit top for a minute, go up there, push just a tiny bit, and then take down that tower, so it's really not that much of a tower that's still in the game. Once they get that down, it'll give them more map control as well as the gold advantage, which is really the biggest thing that... The biggest difference that has right now between being alive with just one auto attack left and being down is the gold difference is really the biggest difference between those two sort of states that it's in. But it looks like we might be seeing sort of a dragon play right here as the blue team looks like initiating.
Yeah, Jarvan gets out of there, still gets hit by the Amumu wall. Very nice thresh hook over the wall. Gonna be able to get over. Jace flashing over, picking up that kill. Elise gonna be able to repel, and now in the middle of all 5 members. And it looks like she wanted to flash there, but Jace getting that hammer shot just a little bit sooner than the flash went off. And this is going to be yet another free dragon and 2 free ward pickups.
Yeah, something else I see that a lot of teams don't actually end up doing is they don't want to blow a lot of big spells for a single kill. That's what we really saw there for the blue team, and that's why they came ahead in that fight. They blew 2 flashes to get a Jarvan kill. And that's really it. They didn't know the fact that Elise was going to stay there. They just wanted the Jarvan kill. And even if Elise hadn't died, just getting the Jarvan down would force a 4v5. They would be able to pressure the mid tower. They'd be able to pressure Dragon because there's no smite control for the red team since Jarvan is down. So little tiny advantages like that, even though they seem very, very small, it's still worth blowing a flash, especially once again when this game is so close.
Yeah. And those tiny advantages, like we saw even earlier, about 10 minutes ago, the gold lead completely even. Now 4k gold lead in the lead for a Catastrophe. Buffet line really needs to start taking more objectives here and fighting a little smarter. And it looks like we're going to see an engagement in the mid lane. Kale ulting herself right off the bat. Jarvan taking a lot of tower damage. And there goes the ult on top of Amumu and Jace, both trapped inside Amumu. Gonna be able to get out of there though. Now Tarek and Jarvan both really low. Ezreal all popping up there, not gonna be picking up a kill or assist, but Kale definitely going to be able to chase down that Caitlyn, and Tarek even getting picked up. That wasn't the best engagement. Jarvan just took so much damage from the towers, and really when you're behind, you're not in a position to continue to, just fights under your opponent's tower.
Yeah, though it's getting a little bit into the later half of the game. We're at 21 minutes. A lot of people are getting tanky. You know, the tower doesn't damage as much as it did early game, so you're not too at first you're not too discouraged by fighting under a tower, but it does deceptively large amounts of damage when you stand under it for quite a while. And as you said, Jarvan just taken down so low. They really didn't have that much of a coordinated initiation. They were able to get counter initiated quite well by the rest of the blue team. They were able to split them up. They were able to get a lot of damage down, and we saw Jace knocking people back. There's a lot of great things at play for the blue team there, and the red team, they could have fought a better fight, and now they're even farther behind. The gold lead has increased to about 6k at this point. So once again, those small advantages really helping them out, and those small advantages that they got earlier in the game helped them out with that team fight to just get edging out a little bit by little, just a little more of an advantage.
Yeah, and we are going to see, looks like red team kind of coagulating in this bot jungle here. Trying to, keep control, maybe a vision, and maybe, I don't know, trying to get some dragon control, but that's not really what you need to do at this point. You need Baron. Just taking a quick look at the different ward coverage. Blue can see the whole map, and actually we might see an engagement here. Ult going down on Elise, and there comes the Ezreal ult. I think everyone on the blue team specifically pressed S right there to let Ezreal get that kill. Pretty entertaining there, but they could see an inhibitor tower go down here. Red team trying to poke away. Caitlyn getting hooked, using that cleanse and just trying to force this away. And actually, SSJ Vegito taking quite a bit of damage, forced to back off. But that poke damage by Jace's Q without those Elise spiders to block it, or without minions, does a lot of damage. And yeah, they are going to be able to at least pressure that tower. Not going to want to go as far as the inhibitor though. Elise coming up in 2 seconds, and that would be kind of a bad fight for them. They want to play it safe, as we've been seeing the blue team playing incredibly smart and incredibly safe.
They are playing really, really smart right now. They're not diving in too far. They said, all right, we got this tower. We don't need to try to pressure too far into the inhibitor. We don't need to force too many things down. Since we're this far ahead, we're taking every small advantage that shows our way. And this methodical sort of style of play is very, very different than what we saw from them in the last game, where they just took a lead in the early game and sort of ran with it, which really shows the fact that this team is multifaceted. They're able to adapt to situations, and it's really, really working out for them pretty well. Looking at the builds for a second, we have Kale actually going for a Zhonya's Hourglass. He just barely picked it up. An interesting item, I have to say, on Kale, because she sort of stays near the outskirts of the fight quite a bit as well, so she might be looking to get a little bit closer to the fight. She might be looking to dive some of the carries and do damage to them, which is something that Zhonya's would allow her to do, that she wouldn't really be able to do otherwise, because she has her ultimate. She doesn't take damage when she has that on herself, so it can help her dive, but it's not
caught that red team out right there. Red team doing a very, very risky ward, and they could have pretty much poked them down and fully engaged, I believe, with the damage. And look, you see how afraid the blue team is right now, being forced to flash away. We're seeing a Mumu go in. Nothing's going to happen, though. They are going to take this inhibitor. Very, very smart play. And red team not wanting to get even farther behind.
Yeah, this is actually a much closer game than it looked like at first. At first glance, it's, the blue team is winning, but in order to win, like we said, they've taken a lot of small advantages, and it's really a high level of play that the blue team is doing right now to make sure that they don't get tunnel visioned. And I really haven't seen them suffer from that whole, we need this one champion dead, let's kill him, he's very squishy, he's almost dead, and they end up chasing through the rest of the red team and taking a lot of CC and damage on their way. But it looks like they doom bush.
That is a doom bush. Jarvan trying to get over that wall. He is going to survive. Kale going to real arcane shifting. Trundle trying to run away. Jace poke hitting him, and now they are pursuing Elise and Trundle, two very mobile champions. Are they going to be able to get away? A Mumu Thresh just deciding to go for the base. Looks like Elise will get just bursted down really fast, and I don't even know if it's worth chasing Trundle, but they're going to continue to do it. Yeah,
It is kind of worth it chasing Trundle because right now the red team has already surrendered. You know, it doesn't really happen what they do at this moment of the game, but that was a GG. Very, very well played by the blue team. I'm not sure if it was completely over yet. I think a Baron play, a very good Baron play for the red team would have been able to swing the game back into their favor a little bit, but they did decide to surrender, so it will be a victory once again for the blue team.
yeah, Catastrophe taking down Buffet Line in the second round. You know, both are teams we've seen before. I believe I've seen Catastrophe before, and they did really well, and we're seeing them play really well this time. So we'll have to see.